Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jolene's Happy Time Craftcast. I am, in fact, Joleen, and welcome to today's episode. I always say that we have a lot prepared for you, and we do. And I'm very excited to talk to you and with our guests today. But before I get to that, just a few housekeeping things. Our show airs the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. So we're here today, and then we'll be back again in August, which I think is August 14th. And my guests on that episode have a really interesting business as it relates to craft. I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but let's start with the super fun stuff. Today, I'm really excited to welcome to the Happy Time Craftcast Michelle Salyers and Linda Williams from Color Me Happy Fiber Arts. Linda and Michelle are a lot like us in that they are lifelong crafters. And in their crafting, it's not just one thing, it's all the things. So knitting enthusiasts to be sure, but also we're going to throw in some spinning, crochet, fiber work, embroidery. So like all the things. So they understand what we are like, that we absolutely love the world of working with our hands and being crafty. So I know you'll do a really good job as we welcome Linda and Michelle to the Happy Time Craftcast. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And so our guests don't get confused. Michelle is in the black and Linda is in the white. Okay, so got that out of the way. So my very first question for you is, people are often amused by your day jobs. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Okay.
So not only are we natural dyers and
natural dyers, yep,
fiber enthusiasts of all kinds, but well, until July 1st, I was a psychology professor. So I'm still a clinical psychologist by training and was a psychology professor. I still have a couple of graduate students I'm working with, but I did officially retire July 1st.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am not quite so lucky or smart, clever, crafty, because I am still working full time and I'm a neurologist. So I am a faculty member at IU School of Medicine, primarily in the Veterans Affairs system. So I work at a Veterans Affairs hospital in Indianapolis, and I specialize in taking stroke.
Amazing. So you two have been friends for a long time, right? And then you kind of joined forces in this space, fiber, natural fiber, around the time of the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about like what happened? So did I lose you there?
Sure. I'll start out with our story. We met each other more than 20 years ago. We were both working in a health research unit. We do a lot of health systems research and clinical research, and we were always knitting at meetings. And that's actually where I learned to knit. I came to knitting, probably around age 30. So I was doing other things before that.
Okay, so
and we always used to joke that when things were bad.
Linda, did you say that you were knitting in meetings?
Oh,
I think we have a little bit of a delay. I think she said she was knitting in meetings.
Yes.
I love that about you.
We have multiple knitters.
I love that. Well, that's amazing.
We don't. I feel like now I'm the main knitter in the meetings because Michelle isn't in those meetings as much, and some other knitters have moved away. But at the time, we had maybe 4 people knitting in meetings, and we worked in research, and so you were always writing papers and trying to get grants. And so when someone rejected our paper and we were feeling dejected, we would say, we should just open a yarn store. And that was always our fallback.
Our backup
plan. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have known each other for a long time. And then I'll let you tell about kind of the pandemic twist that we took.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, I I was actually also recovering from a neck surgery. So I had been home and spending a lot of time on YouTube learning about different things related to yarn. I've been a lifelong knitter since I was about 8 or 9 years old. But during that time, I started exploring more about spinning and weaving. And I had, the year before, had a sabbatical in France and had learned to weave and got really interested in different types of fiber and how they worked in different ways. And so I took a little dyeing, like a lot of people. I actually started with Kool-Aid and my kids. And we dyed a little bit of yarn, and it was a lot of fun, but very electric colors, I would say. And then when I went to visit my parents in Colorado, we took a road trip, since we weren't flying back then, and took a dye class that used acid-based dyes, but they were kind of environmentally friendly, greener shades dyes. And I just fell in love with the idea that you could create the exact yarn that you would want, you know, the right color, the right texture, whatever base you might want to work with.
So you had like the control so that you were able to, so I can see as you describe it a little bit, I can see how this like appeals to both sides of the brain, in that it sounds like we've got a little bit of chemistry involved in this process for scientific folks such as yourself. And then you mix that up, and of course we're knitting in meetings, because for me anyway, busy hands, I'm better. I focus better, and I am a much better participant when I'm either doodling or knitting or something like that. So all of that makes sense. I was going to say that I too have dabbled in the Kool-Aid dyeing arts. I have tried it with a book, and I dumped it in a big vat of like, electric is a great word, because I dumped it in there and the crystals weren't all the way dissolved. So some of those crystals got in the pages of my book. Wasn't exactly the effect that I was going for, but that Kool-Aid stuff is a powerful agent. So you stepped away from that though, and you got into more natural materials. And so how was a business born from this little dabbling?
Well, many crafters, we collect materials, right?
Right.
I don't know if all crafters call it this.
Yes.
Call it the stash.
The
Stash. And I love to garden, and so we started figuring out what we could use from the garden to naturally dye with, and we started dyeing all this yarn. And Michelle said, I don't think we can use all this yarn. Like, we're way more yarn even than we can use.
Right, of course.
Start a business. And I will say, from my perspective, having another partner, like I would never start a business on my own. I'm way too risk averse.
Sure.
But, having another person who said, hey, we could start a business, and thinking about, there's two of us, could we actually make this work? That was really a key also.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about then, okay, so you're growing the plants, you are dyeing the fiber. How do you make the dye color fast? How does it stay in the fibers? And do you get asked that question a lot?
Yeah, because
I thought maybe.
I think a lot of people think about natural dyeing as, maybe you get some browns and yellows. It's, maybe a little bit drab, and maybe you get something that doesn't last very well, because maybe that's been their experience. But there are thousands of year old traditions of how to make it work. If you think about seeing a tapestry at a museum, that's anything that's over about 150 years old that you see is dyed with natural materials, because chemicals didn't come out until the later half of the 1800s. So so there are lots of techniques. I'll let you talk about them, Michelle, but we do that. There's a process before you put the dye on that makes the dye stick, or sometimes multiple processes.
Right. So it becomes color fast.
It becomes color fast, right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And that process is called mordanting. And it
Sure.
comes from a French word that means to bite, mordre.
Okay.
And so by treating the yarn with metallic salts like alum that's used in pickling, something you can get at the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
you heat the yarn after you've scoured it, cleaned it,
Mm-hmm.
heat it with that alum, and that alum allows it to bind to the dye molecules in the dye materials. So in your coreopsis or your marigold.
I love like you two are so like a combustion of the best worlds, you know, the right brain and the left brain. And it's like, let's get together and, you know, be specific and scientific and yet wildly creative, because I understand that, you know, to your point, Linda, that the colors aren't just brown and gold. You can get all kinds of colors. So I'm behind you. I am seeing
Right.
pinks and reds
Yes.
and right. So what is your favorite, I guess, medium? Like what's your favorite natural something to give you your favorite result?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question.
Yeah, because I suppose you love them all. They're just all like kind of delicious after a point.
They are.
Me
There's
too.
no bad color. It's all in the
Yeah.
context and how
Right.
you use them together.
I think
Yeah.
I go through seasonal kind of phases.
Of course,
too,
yes.
because I'm very nature oriented. So if it's fall, I want those rich oranges and browns and golds. And if it's summer, I want more of the hot pinks and the corals and things like that.
So where does the hot pink come from?
The hot pink, just like this sky.
Ooh, look at that. That's gorgeous.
It actually comes from an insect. There are a couple of insects used in dyeing, and reds and pinks can come from a plant. There's a plant called madder, which has been used for thousands of years to make reds. But the really fuchsia pinks come from, you've got two options. The one we often use is called cochineal. And cochineal is a little bug that grows on paddle cacti in the Southwest.
Yeah.
So this year I was hiking with my husband and some friends in Arizona, and it's right there along the side of the trail. You can find these little bugs on the cacti.
Oh my gosh.
Caused more of a pause in our hiking trip than some people were happy with, let me just say, because I was obsessing over the bugs.
Right.
But that, yeah, you can actually get those. They're farmed in South America. And so there are natural dye materials suppliers that are good, sustainable, focused suppliers that you can purchase from. And you get them dried. They almost look like little Himalayan salt crystals, but they're little dried beetles.
So you're not out in the forest collecting them with a specimen jar and a needle.
No,
you can actually, or tweezers, you can actually get them from somewhere.
I worry if I lived in Arizona, that's what would be happening.
Right, of course. For those of you listening, you have to know that my mouth is agape and I am just inspired, and I love this. I love this so much in that because, you know, I'm a repurposer. That's kind of my whole artistic vibe, is that I really love using things that already exist to make new things instead of, you know, like buying stuff to make stuff. Like I like to use what's been, you know, disposed of. And so this is absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that's where those colors come from. So I also know that you have shared that you can paint yarns with natural materials. I can't wait to hear what that's about. How do I do that? What's that?
Well, that I would say Michelle is the artist in that.
Okay.
One that has the really super creative brain and used to paint, and so has good ideas about color combinations. But that is one way that we have developed making variegated yarns, which is another thing. People usually imagine natural dyes as
to be one lot.
Color. And so there are many techniques that you can use, and they're generally similar to the techniques you would use with chemical dyes. You have to do some things differently because of the natural dyes. They don't bite and stick immediately like the chemical dyes do.
Sure.
But I'll let Michelle tell you about some of our techniques that we've
So,
developed.
Michelle, I imagine it's kind of messy and like, is it like not really precise and you can just like really get in there and be, yeah, right. Okay. Can't wait. Tell me.
It is.
Tell me.
It is, although like the scientist in me is always like, okay, how many grams did you
Right?
produce it?
I know it's a nice combination between the two.
Right.
I love to get in there. I'll mix some jars of different ingredients like the cochineal or marigold for yellow, coreopsis for orange. And then I just start playing and I lay the yarn out after it's been allumed and I just start putting on color wherever it feels
Like a spoon in a liquid, like
I was
dribbling,
gonna say,
squirting it with a syringe.
Yeah, I
We
do
that.
syringes. And then sometimes we use the dried materials and sprinkle it on top. And that gives you speckles or just pops of really deep color.
so like, do you guys have like a lab? Like, where do you do this? Like, what is the space like?
Yeah.
Like, is it all clean and you guys are wearing lab coats and like,
I wish that would be like my fantasy.
right?
Yeah, we have a little cottage on my property where my husband and I live, and it's in the same neighborhood where Linda used to live.
Mhm.
So we are lucky to have our own little cottage. And so we repurposed the kitchen and put in like a stainless steel
I bet, yes.
sink and table, and we have a whole closet with our dye materials, and we can lay things out in the kitchen and steam and cook in there too. So
how often are you like in the laboratory cooking up new stuff?
well, because I live here, I'm out here almost every day.
Is it still fun though? Like, is it fun and you love to be there?
Yes.
It sounds really fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. We've been trying to figure out how to do sort of production dyeing where we can dye larger amounts of the same color. But my favorite times are when I can just play in the studio and try to.
I understand that entirely. Yes.
Yeah. Different combinations and colors.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of a balance that we're trying to figure out between, in an ideal world, like finally someday when I'm retired too, maybe we'll have more of a schedule. Like we do 2 days of experimenting and 3 days where we're doing more production dyeing or, some kind of a schedule that right now it does flex every day, but we have kind of a weekly planning meeting where we talk about the week to come and
treating your business like a business. And
yeah.
Well, I can see why, like, just from the origin story and where you are and what you do, Color Me Happy is a perfect name for what you're up to, because I mean, it sounds delightful. And I just, when crafty folks are doing the things that they love, I think that is beneficial for the rest of the crafty folks because, it's a passion, right? Like I can see and sense that, it's something that you really enjoy, and the discovery of all these possibilities must be amazing.
Yeah,
it really is. And it really, I think about the brain a lot as a neurologist.
Right, of course.
It really is a way of connecting both sides of the brain, different parts of the brain, and getting them to work together. And we know that's really good for brain health. And Michelle knows how good that is for mood and how colors influence your mood. And so we really do believe that, connecting people to nature and color and making, it's just like the sweet spot of like healthy behavior.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Linda, what's interesting is I've talked about it a lot on the Happy Time Craftcast is, so we all talk about how, connecting with our hands and minds and, how artistry and crafting is beneficial. And, there's so many articles on it, but what I can't seem to find, and maybe someday you'll help me connect to this, is why is it that some of us have to create and build and discover and tinker? Like, what is it in our brain? Because I actually feel a bit unfulfilled in my day if there hasn't been an opportunity for some kind of creative expression. And if you can't answer me right now, that's okay. But if you could get back to me on that, I would really, really like to know why I am so wired for working with my hands.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know why some people are and some aren't. And I wonder, what I'm thinking about though, is I'm wondering if certain people have other types of creative expressions that maybe we don't realize as much. They're not as front facing.
Sure.
They're doing more creative things in their relationships or in their subconscious. Right. Maybe that's one idea that I might have. Anyway.
Well, maybe I've presented an outgoing thesis question for you as you as you head into retirement one day. Well, so springboarding from there, do you have a favorite project or medium or technique of all the things that you do and discovered? Is there one that you just love, love, love and would love others to know about?
I love the hand painting. And we do a lot of classes where people can come and create their own specific yarn for a project. If they want to knit or crochet something with specific colors, I really enjoy that because it gives you the freedom to just explore color combinations and at the same time create a very special yarn for some project. And I think a lot of people feel guilty about our stash, that you've collected so much yarn and you don't use it.
Yes.
But by making a hand painted yarn, that can go with other parts of your stash. You can use it as a special piece.
I love that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So for me, that's like my excitement.
Okay. Linda, what about you?
I am very much a gardener at heart. I grew up on a farm, and I think my making history was lots of different kinds of making, on the, whether it was sewing or canning or whatever, lots of different kinds of making. And so I really appreciate, we buy materials sometimes, not every dye material grows in Central Indiana. So we buy dye materials, but I really love when we can go harvest the dye materials, and usually then we're cooking them. And it makes me, like, I think about the smell in the kitchen when we're simmering goldenrod that we've harvested from our pasture, and then we're going to make something out of that color. And so that whole sensory experience really, like, it takes me to a very particular time and a sense of kind of fulfillment and like working one-on-one with nature. So I really love those times.
I love hearing you describe it, and I still see you in the lab coats in the like in the space where you're kind of tinkering and playing and pulling all these fun things together. Well, do you then have perhaps a little project that our listeners can try? Because, we did, kind of frame our episode around being able to dye fiber in the sun. Can you explain what that means to folks?
Sure.
Yeah. So we have little kits that we sell, but you can also do this on your own, that are solar dye kits. And what you do, we have pre-mordanted the yarn. And so I mentioned earlier that we use alum often as a mineral salt that can work. So you can get some alum and heat some yarn, as long as it has protein in it. I should have said earlier, there are different types of yarns, materials like cottons or bamboo would require a different pre-mordanting process.
And natural dyes don't stick very well to synthetic materials.
Sure.
So nylon or something like that, the natural
acrylic.
Acrylic will not stick well to that. But a wool or a silk or an alpaca.
Right. Anything
with good stuff.
Yeah.
The good stuff. Okay. I follow.
So you can do your own pre-mordanting by heating it with alum. Once it's pre-mordanted, you can put your yarn in a jar with some natural dye materials. And so in our packets, we have marigold, which gives a beautiful yellow. So we just take the dried flowers. And so if you're growing marigolds, you can just put just pick the
Pick
dead
them
heads.
off, lay them on a paper towel to dry, and then you can use them to natural dye.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay.
Put them in the jar with your yarn, put some water in that, and then set it outside. Around here, we usually do solar dyeing in the summer, and 3 days to a week is probably enough.
You can crack the lid and give it the sniff test, and if it starts to smell a little funky because there are flowers in there, just take it out.
Okay, so
and then you get something like this.
I have so many questions. Oh, that's so amazing! It looks like its own variation from the way that it's in the jar. Is that what I'm seeing?
This one.
Amazing. Okay, can you use phlox? I have a lot of phlox in my garden. Are those good for anything?
Phlox.
I don't think so.
Not
looking
enough
at, they're good for use.
Yeah.
They don't make a color.
So is it like we need more like sunflowery bud, something in the middle? Is that like the better kind of flower? Like a marigold?
No, it's really it's very just dependent on the flower. So there are flowers with very intense colors, but that don't have any dye pigments in them.
Peonies?
So like peonies don't have dye pigments, zinnias don't have dye pigments, but there are really good lists online of flowers and things that are good dye materials. And another one that we use a lot is Coreopsis, which is a native prairie flower.
Yep.
And its full Latin name is Coreopsis tinctoria. And any plant that has tinctoria in it, like tincture, means it's a dye plant. So it's best to look up a list so that you don't get disappointed and have something kind of.
Right. So what's your opinion on irises? Because I pounded an iris with a hammer on a piece of watercolor paper, and that thing exploded all over and gave me really, really great pigment.
Yeah.
It will give you beautiful pounding. There are a lot of things that you can pound leaves and different flowers. The issue that you're likely to have is that won't last a long time. It'll fade over time. So if you found it and you love it and it's for now, and you're going to use it hard and give to someone, that's wonderful. If you want it to stay and look the same next year, then you need to use an actual dye plant. Yeah.
Okay. So to review the steps, we need if we're going to do this ourselves, otherwise you have the kit. We are going to get a natural fiber, not an acrylic or what was the other one?
A plant fiber.
Not a plant.
You can naturally dye those, but you need an extra step that we haven't talked
about. We're not talking about that. Okay. So we want more like an alpaca, a silk, a wool or a cotton?
Wool.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything with protein that came from an
animal. Got it. That goes in the mason jar with a flower plant or whatever from a list, perhaps, that I'm sure Zizi can find, and I'll find it and link it in our show notes. And then we put that in. Is it hot water, cold water, just water?
Just water. I usually put warm water to start to kind of get the process going. But once it sits out in the sun or out in the heat, it'll warm up itself.
Okay.
But I usually start with warm water.
And did you say 3 days to 3 weeks? Did I hear that right?
3 days to 1 week.
3 days to 1 week. Okay. And then, so then when we take it out of the jar, then what happens?
Then you can rinse it in a bucket or
water.
So often it will have flower parts on it. So I'm undoing a piece of yarn, and I'll do a little shake with it. And then you can just submerge it in some water to get the extra pieces off and let it dry. And that's kind of a curing phase where you let it dry for a few days. And then you can just wash it like you wash your knitted or crocheted item. Yeah.
It must be so fun to pull it out of the jar and then out of the little rinsing water bath to just see what you have.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so excited. I can't wait to try this.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes when we have a big pot and it's very exciting to take the lid
Right.
off and see what happened.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Okay. So where can our listeners find you? And where can they find a kit? And I'll link it in the show notes, but you should still tell us.
Okay. So colormehappyfiberarts.com is our website. And we have all of our kits and yarn and naturally dyed fiber there. We also are on YouTube. We have a monthly studio show, and then we periodically put shorter episodes up related to fiber.
Touring a farm that we're getting fiber
Sure.
from, touring a mill,
fiber
or something.
mill, yeah.
I
Anything
love
related.
that.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And don't you also have something about your newsletter?
Yes.
We're on Instagram and Facebook, of
Instagram,
course.
Facebook too.
And then we have a newsletter. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you get a little discount. And we are not prolific newsletter writers. So
Sure.
maybe a couple times a month, you'll hear from us at the most.
Right. And you are Color Me Happy Fiber Arts is a team of 2, right?
Yes.
Like you're everything from packaging and labeling and dyeing and sending.
Well, this year we did, one of our business goals this year was to add a part-time person. And so we did. We call her our yarn fairy, Sarah.
Yes, I love that. Hi, Sarah. I love that.
So that's been really great because she's helped us a lot with many of the behind the scenes kind of tasks.
Right. And
Yes.
shows.
And she's in her day job, she is a project manager. So she taught us the Kanban style of planning. So we now have a Kanban board, and like we're getting all fancy with like planning out what we're going to dye next. And
I love that.
Educated.
I'm going to have to link that too, because I am a prolific list maker. And, my business partner is my husband. And so I'll say, it's time to set goals, and he'll roll his eyes and be like, oh my God. But I love it so much. I'm going to have to look that up because that sounds, I love those words of, a board and like.
Oh, and it's so much fun. You don't need anything fancy. We have little scrap pieces of paper that we have stuck to a wall, and it's so gratifying. You can move it from this column to that column, and then take it off when you're done.
And it's also very visual, right? So that appeals. So one of our good friends, Deborah, in the comments here, she has a question for you, and it's which plants smell really good to you in the cooking process? I would imagine.
Oh,
that's a good question.
I think goldenrod smells really good. I really like the smells. I think marigolds smell good as well. You are not so sure?
I'm less on marigolds.
I like the way marigolds smell.
Yeah. Marigolds are pretty polarizing, kind of, in my experience, kind of like a carnation. It's almost like you don't know if you can love it.
So something that is a very common kind of ubiquitous dye material that probably is on the other end that maybe doesn't smell quite as good is walnuts.
Oh.
Yeah.
They make a lovely rich brown, but they are not great smelling in the dye pot, I would say. But most things
believe that. I've had trouble with walnut stain on my farm from squirrels hiding walnuts in between the cushions of my outdoor furniture.
Yes.
And then I have this huge walnut ink stain that's not coming out for nothing. So I could see where that would be a good
will not come out.
Agent. Yeah, it's not coming out. It's like there forever. So interesting.
Yes. And so you've proven the fact, which is true, that walnuts are one of the few dye materials that don't need a mordant.
Is the walnut. I believe it.
And that's why it stains, your cushions and your clothing and everything.
And your hands.
Oh, I know, because I use walnut ink in a lot of my mixed media work. And if it's on my hands, which I'm always messy, but if it's on my hands, it's going to be on there for a bit. So understood. Thank you for your question, Deborah. You're just the best. Well, before we get into our last segment, which if you can believe it, time goes so fast, I do want to just let folks know what's on my work table, and I would like you two to answer the same. So Right now, what I am working on is I got a new toy this weekend, and I've had one, but it hasn't worked really well. But I got myself a drill press. And with my drill press, I also got a bunch of bits that are large circles. And I've been taking these bits through bookboard without, because you can take the drill bit that holds it in the center and you can go all the way down into your material. I have decided to pull that out because I don't want a hole in the middle of my bookboard. So I've been cutting bookboard on my bandsaw and doing all kinds of things with it. But now I've started cutting it into circles. So my idea and my vision is that I'm going to take these bookboard circles with little pieces of a dowel that I've also chopped, and I'm going to make it 3-dimensional on my substrate. So coming out from the background will be these circles at various depths of field, but the circles will be made from bookboard. Right? I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. So the problems I've been having is, one, my drill press is a tabletop drill press, and it's on just a regular work table, but it's kind of tall. And so we have some safety things we have to figure out because the bit is like right at eye level. And I haven't had anything spring too far, but it does spring off sometimes, and I don't want it to like whack me right in my face. So I have a couple things to figure out there. And drilling into bookboard, very dusty. Like, it makes a huge mess. And unlike my bandsaw, my drill press doesn't have an internal vacuum system to pull some of that stuff up and away. So it is making a mess of my cut room, which I don't really care, but I'm having to clean it almost hourly. Otherwise, I have so much blowback that I'm, trying to work through. So that's what's on my work table. I am drilling bookboard with a drill press. What are you two working on?
I've been working on swatching for different projects. And so I've been taking different types of yarn, like Surrey silk in different colors, and then seeing if I put them together in different ways, what kind of fabric I'm going to get to kind of
think a lot of
figure out my next project.
Well, a lot of knitters and crocheters, don't we kind of like, complain about swatching? But tell me a little bit about what you do with your swatches when you're done. Do you make something out of all the little bits? Or do you undo it?
That is a great question. Yeah. I have been keeping mine in a little project notebook, so I can know this is what this material looks like on this size needle. So then I can kind of come back to it and I can see like
so you have
how
like
many
a little
stitches
reference
I get,
card.
what my gauge is. I do think it would be cool sometime to piece them all together and make some kind of a blanket or wall hanging. I haven't gotten there. I just keep them.
It must be wildly satisfying to make, it sounds so satisfying to make a swatch and then, kind of write about what needle you used and like, this is the result, and you get to go back. Like, I'm visualizing something you can flip through, I love this organization stuff so much. Yeah. Awesome.
And people that are looking at our yarn really like to see the swatches too. Sure. So they get a sense of what it looks like when it's knit up in different ways. So those are useful to have around us.
That makes sense.
What
are you working on?
Well, I have had a new tool that I've been playing with, which is an I-cord maker.
Okay.
So an I-cord in knitting is like a long cord, like a sweatshirt string.
Sure.
But you can imagine it's very tedious and boring.
Oh, yeah.
Something like this. So this is a little tool that you can purchase a bunch of different places online. And it's got 3 machine knitting needles in a handle. And you have to put your yarn on the right way to get started. But then you just wrap your yarn and pull it, wrap and pull it, wrap and pull it. So it's really fast to make the I-cord. And I was working on a little knitted bag.
So cool.
So
Look
I
at
had
that
to make
cute thing.
long I cords, and I had a lot of fun using my new tool, and it was so fast that now I'm now not intimidated to make a sweatshirt because I know I can make the I cord quickly.
I love that. I'm going to link an iCord maker in the show notes too, because I don't even know what I need it for, but I know I would love that process.
Yeah.
Right? Like I would love the process of making that thing because that's so cool. I
Yeah,
love
fun.
because in my work I do make a lot of little pieces of things, so I'm not at all afraid of the repetition of what some folks might find to be monotonous.
Mhm.
Is just pure pleasure for me. I love that so much. That's so cool. Well, awesome. Well, good luck to all of us in these great projects that we're doing. And I can't wait to hear how everything turns out. So in our last segment of our show here, I do the same thing every time. I ask folks a series of questions, and you can give me one-word answers. You can elaborate, but it's just our little send-off and our very best way to get to know you even better. So the first one's pretty easy, and it is, what is your favorite word?
The thing that came to mind for me is nature.
Of course, which totally tracks with who you are. I love that.
Mine was joy.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. I love that. Last week, Christine said chocolate. And I was like, yep,
Yes.
yep, I'm gonna remember that like forever. Like I love that so much. I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna steal it. So then what's your least favorite word?
Ooh.
What came to mind for me right away was pain.
Oh, sure.
Ooh,
I bet in your line of work, especially, like that would just be terrible.
Yeah, and you want
Yeah.
to, as a physician, you want to alleviate
Mhm.
pain, and there's a
Right.
burden with that. So probably that's why.
Right. That makes sense.
Mhm.
yeah. I think no.
Mm,
That is
fair.
Michelle is the yes you can person.
I am a
Yes.
fan, and
We all need a Michelle on our team. I love that.
do.
I love that. Mine was going to be, I went to a really dark place. I went to audit,
Yeah, that's bad too.
right? Like don't know why I was thinking about taxes or something, but I think the word audit just like stops me in my tracks. Okay. All right. This is very serious. What is the best kind of sandwich?
Okay, I'm ready. BLT.
Agree. Totally agree. Agree.
that is
Michelle?
a good one. I like peanut butter and honey, and I like my peanut butter like natural peanut butter,
Yep. Yep.
both sides of the bread,
Yep.
and then Linda and her husband make honey. Well, their bees,
the bees
make
make
honey.
honey.
Right. Right. Right.
We just steal it from them.
You-
That's what we
Right.
do.
Right. Thank you, bees.
And so putting their honey between those two pieces of
So, Michelle, you had me until the smashing part because I was hoping you were going to say with potato chips in between the layers to like add like some salty crunch. You have to trust me. I'm not wrong. It is amazing. Peanut butter, honey, and potato chips, just mush. Let me know how it goes. You're
All right.
gonna send me a thank you note because it's really, really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. What does being an artist mean to you?
Maybe freedom in a way. I have never thought of myself really as an artist. I think about
Right.
like being a crafter or a
Mhm.
maker or a
Mhm.
creator of things.
Yeah.
And what we do is art. I mean,
Mhm.
Mhm.
fiber art, and it's, I think, the freedom to try new things and
Mhm.
put new
Mhm.
media together, or new colors or textures.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I was thinking about sometimes we do get hung up on, are you an artist or a maker? And
Oh yeah.
I think you should call it whatever feels right to you, because to me what you're really talking about is something authentic that
Mhm.
comes from really who you are. And so
Mhm.
that's what being an artist or a maker or a creator, whatever word,
Right.
it's that authentic, this came from something that was really me.
Yeah.
That
Right.
part.
And I totally agree. Michelle, I've used all the labels. Crafter, maker, artist has come very late to me. I didn't know that I was allowed really to use that word because I've explained it several times before. So if you've heard it, forgive me, but you do not want me as your Pictionary partner. You just don't. Like, I'm a really good guesser. I'm an amazing guesser. I mean, somebody, drew a triangle once and I got Matterhorn. Like, I'm just that good of a guesser. But I can't draw a cat to save my life. Like, I have no, literal artistic ability. Like, I can't draw a face or anything like that. But I can, put other pieces together and I can visualize, how to build and to tinker. But for the longest time, I didn't think that being an artist was accessible to me as an identifier because I don't have realism skills. Right.
Right.
But now, I mean, my whole life really does center around my artwork. My business centers around it. The things that I do when I'm not in my businesses center around it. So I agree with you. I think it is whatever word you want it to be fits. And I also love that there's freedom, and I feel like I'm getting to play. And I also feel like sometimes if the test and the play doesn't go right, I don't really have any energy about it. I no longer have like, oh, what a waste. I don't do that anymore. I don't know when that happened. It's kind of recent, I think. But maybe it's age. I don't know. But I feel so much more chill about my attempts not going exactly the way I want. Does that happen for you too in the laboratory? Like if it doesn't like work out exactly, is it the end of the world?
Yeah. You kind of cut out there a little bit.
Baby. You guys handled it well.
We were tracking with you, like feeling free. Feeling free to use what you use and be yourself. And I think that's the really beautiful part of it.
I know it is. I love it so much. So oopsie, we already talked about that one. What about this one? What sound or noise do you love?
The first thing that came to mind is the sound of walking across gravel or like that crunching noise. Yeah. Walking out in nature on a path or stones. Maybe like when you're on that kind of sound, I think.
I like that sound
to me.
Linda?
Yeah. What came to my mind, we have a pond and a barn, and we have this frog chorus that starts in the spring and it kind of goes all summer as it gets dusk, and just there's like 3 or 4 different kinds of frogs and they're all calling,
right?
And I just really love that. Is such a beautiful sound.
I
kind of rhythmic. And
we have that on my farm too. We have frogs, and then every now and again there'll be like almost like a deeper bass ribbit. So like we're getting the whole like like the whole spectrum.
Some almost sound like a plucked banjo string.
Yes,
very different.
I love it. So what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, the chalkboard scratching.
I'm there. I hate that so much.
I
shivers.
Have really lately been hating the kind of news commentary on the TV, just the sound of it. Like they talk too fast. It's just, kind of
overstimulating. Yes.
Overstimulating too much.
So I say this a lot, and I'm hoping that my child will be watching this to like take it to heart that I hate this sound. And one of my sons is a death metal drummer, and I love that sound compared to the sound I'm about to describe. One of my children leaves the sound on their phone when they're texting. Exactly, like a sociopath. Yes, like that.
Yeah, my husband does that too.
How do they do this?
I do not know. I do not know. And my kids have asked him, like, Dad, you need to turn that off.
Yeah. And my son texts so fast that it is it is so overstimulating, and it immediately makes my head spin, just like, what are you doing? Like, you're perfect in every other way, Jack. I'm pleading with you to knock it off.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's awesome.
I think he does it now because he knows I don't like it. Well, so this should be interesting because you both have, recent professions. So, and you've got your new profession. So maybe something different, but what profession other than the ones you're in right now would you like to attempt?
If I had another lifetime,
Yeah.
maybe like an archaeology or cultural historical analysis from tools and things that people used in the past. I love
Sure.
the idea of really exploring the past and what that might have been like, and kind of imagining those
Well, and it
things.
has a science-y, clearly, that appeals to you, the psychologist. Absolutely. That makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
this will probably not shock you either. But I really like systems. Like, the research I do is about health systems and how the system works together. And so since I love nature, I think a lot about ecosystems. And I think I could see myself having a career as like an environmental science person. Sometimes I think, oh, I want to be a botanist, or, oh, I could have been an animal behaviorist or something. But really, I think what would probably be the most fascinating to me would be to think about the system of nature and how it's working, and maybe studying where it's not working and trying to help it work better.
I love that. I think that this question tells us so much about a person, because my answer is welder. If I wasn't so accident prone, and if I wasn't just safety, I need a bubble. I am just such a clumsy person. And it's if I wouldn't hurt myself to extreme peril, I would still like to try it. My friend Tammy says that it's possible with the right equipment and some YouTube videos. My husband says, absolutely no, we don't have that kind of insurance. But
I think you could do it.
It doesn't that seem awesome to and it's garbage art, which is totally my thing, being able to make new things out of old things. So anyway, that's I would love to be a welder. I mean, never having held a torch, I say things that I don't know, but that's what I think I would love. So what professions would you not like to do?
That's a good one.
Right?
I always thought not a toll booth operator.
Oh, right. That would be very monotonous.
Yeah. And the smell of the cars.
Right. And all those fumes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah. This is maybe a weird answer, because I actually do like to cook.
I'm very excited about this. Yes.
Well, I like to cook, especially vegetables that I've grown. I love to cook, but I think being a chef, for other people, having to work in a pressure cooker kind of environment and turn that all out so fast. I don't think I would like that at all. I think it would make me crazy.
I totally agree with that. I think when it's for pleasure or creative, I think it sounds amazing. And I see, my chef husband do it all the time. He loves it. I would not like to be a cubicle person. I would not like a job that was just kind of in front of me and didn't involve either the interaction with people or, I wouldn't want to be sedentary in my work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me because my son is a computer science person, and he actually views writing code as a form of creativity for him.
Oh, definitely.
So it's so interesting that he can do that sedentary work, because maybe this gets back to your question about
the creativity, because it's a whole nother language.
Yeah, because I can see how for him it is this wildly creative, exciting thing, which for me would not feel that way at all.
Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting. People are just wired so differently.
Well, and my chef is a software engineer and a mechanical engineer.
Mhm.
And now he is a yoga mat maker and a retreat host and a chef and a farmer and like all kinds of things that I never thought he would be. But when he talks about what he misses and what he loves to do the most, it's write code and, be immersed in these creative puzzle solving languages.
Right.
He loves it.
Yes.
And I'm like, you're such a weirdo. But no.
He's just tapping into all of his brain.
Right. But I think it goes back to what you're saying about creativity. Like that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So since this is called the Happy Time Craftcast, we have to, of course, ask, what brings you the most happiness?
Wow.
Deep thoughts with Linda and Michelle and Joleen.
Well, maybe this is a trite answer, but it really is being with the people who you love and who love you for who you are. So, and often that does involve making, like I love making things for those people.
Right.
But it's really those relationships, like when you're known and just loved for who you are, like that's really to me the essence.
I don't think that's trite at all. I think that's beautiful. Michelle, what about you?
Not to get like too into theory, but
please bring it. I love it. I can't wait for it.
Self-determination theory would tell us that when you have the right sense of kind of like mastery and connection and autonomy together, that's when people are at their best. And I feel that way too. Like when I'm connected to other people in my life, being connected to nature, and also making things. Looks like your husband's here.
Yeah, we might have a visitor.
I almost looked. I was like, wait a minute, we're not in the same room.
Yeah. So when those things happen together, like making things for someone you love, or just exploring nature. I think
those are beautiful answers. Mine is probably somewhere in between, and it changes every show. But like what I think brings me the most happiness sometimes is just the realization that for me, happiness can be a choice. I can decide if I am going to live in this state of being happy, or if my focus and my worldview is going to be my stress and my worries and the things that consume me, or if I'm just going to do a little flip. Now, I don't know scientifically if that's possible or not, but I do feel like I am able to have some agency and decide. And I'm lucky that I'm healthy and that my brain allows me to do that, of course. Right. But it makes me pretty happy to know that when I feel a little blue, I'm able to come back. And what brings me back is, great conversations, great connections, times with people I love, and even being in my community, my social media community. Oh man, I love those people. I love them so much. And I think that, that's my answer. That's my answer today.
That's awesome. I think you're right.
Well, thank you. Well, there is one thing that you said that I wanted to kind of like circle back to. And you said that you believe color and creativity are key influencers in our mental and physical health, and that making things with natural materials is one way to ground and connect us to the ecological systems. So with that being said, can you describe how you feel about your business, Color Me Happy?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll start. I guess I feel that in some ways, it's sort of like the culmination of all these different things that I can look back to in my life. And it's brought them together in a way that is really, really beautiful. Like, I grew up on a farm and I loved nature and I loved making things, and I love knitting, and Michelle and my friendship is a long and deep, rich friendship. And, to have something that brings all of those things together into one entity, it's really kind of a miracle. It's just amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I just feel so grateful
Mhm.
that, you know, I can tap into all those things that I love and find one way to kind of bring them together.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
Michelle, anything?
I feel exactly the same way, that I've always loved knitting. And for a long time, I did painting kind of on the side. And the idea of bringing color and texture together. And now we're doing that with yarn and fiber. And we're always learning new things. And so as a psychologist and a researcher, we learn these skills about how to do studies, and we're applying that exactly to learning about new colors or new techniques to bring those colors out. And so we're always learning new things and meeting new people.
Mhm.
So it's a constant challenge
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Right.
And so for me, this is the perfect way to move into retirement from one
Right.
great career
Mhm.
to another one. So
I-
every day I'm happy.
I love that. And I thank you both so much for being on the Happy Time Craftcast. I wish you both so much joy and success in Color Me Happy Natural Fiber Arts, right? That's the whole name, I think. I will be sure to link everything in our show notes so our folks know where to find you. They know how to find your newsletter. They can find the resources that you mentioned today. And I hope so much that you will, like, don't be strangers, like we're friends now. I hope that we'll definitely stay in touch. And the hour goes by so fast. So thank you both so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. And for those of you who are wondering what we're going to be doing next time, Katie and Dean, do you guys know about Katie and Dean Turberville?
Sure do.
Okay. They have a yarn adventure truck, and they are going to be on the show on August 14th. So I cannot wait to hear and learn all about that. So for those of you listening and in our comments today, thank you so much, Deborah and Vicky and Paige and all of our friends. I appreciate you. And we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.